I look today at a presidential election that is more like professional mud wrestling than it is about a serious discussion about the needs of our country. I consider the fact that the major economic issues of our time are really getting short shrift, and we are not. We're still in a discussion of limitations, tax cuts or tax increases. That's the only thing that Washington knows. Cut people's taxes, cut for some, which is part of the acceleration of the wealth upwards, or increase taxes, and that's part of the acceleration of the wealth upwards because the people at the top aren't paying a fair share. And so we're locked into a debate that is that same box that, you know, I was circling inside of many years ago. And this really, America's at the threshold of a moment when we have to move the country in a direction of a profoundly different discussion about the nature of nationhood and the power of the government, the people's government, to reset the public agenda using the resources that, when our Constitution was first written, the founders put the mechanism in there. Under Article 1, Section 8, Congress had the power to coin or create money, period. We all know about the Federal Reserve Act. We all know how the public has not really understood that the Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express, but that we have a condition that today the money system is run for the few at the expense of the many. Now, we all know that in this room. I have no need to preach to a choir. But the Reverend who was here earlier understood the social power of this message. We can organize people around this now. We can organize people along the thinking of creating plenty, of creating jobs for the many, of rebuilding America, of health care for all, and education for all, and jobs for all. There shouldn't be people sleeping in the streets of America. There shouldn't be people out on the street losing their homes. There shouldn't be people observing their jobs closing left and right all over America. We are really in a country right now that has the key to the deliverance of our democracy. And it goes back to the work of you, Stephen. And so it's up to us who are still involved in making public policy, either from the inside or the outside, to be as apostles spreading this word, because sooner or later it is going to catch on, because necessity being the mother of invention, we cannot keep going into this spiral of decline where we're told that we have to keep cutting public resources and assets, keep privatizing everything that belongs to the public, and chopping it up and cartelizing it and sending it off to in multinational corporations. We can't go that route. And so when people are waiting for alternatives, we can say we have the alternative. Jim, if you can sit almost on the back of an envelope and say, you know, I'll figure out a way to write off $1 trillion in student debt, I mean, that tells you this is not imaginary. The mechanisms are there. Paradoxically, the Federal Reserve gave us a lesson with the quantitative easing that was used during the subprime meltdown, creating money out of nothing and giving it to who? Other banks. Not only in America, but internationally. Now, when you can explain to people they did that, it's one of those guess what moments. We can do the same thing. And we don't have to give the money to banks. We can put the money into circulation and spend it specifically for the needs of the people. When you start to communicate that to people, there's real power in that. And we need to take it into the black churches. We need to take it into labor halls. We need to take it across this country. This is the time to do it. We're at the threshold of a really powerful shift in public consciousness. It will not play out in the election of 2016. It's like a wave that's coming. And it'll wash over the 2016, and regardless of who gets elected in 16, there'll be a one-termer, because the changes that are coming are so powerful that there's this great opening that's occurred. And it's an opening in awareness, in tidal changes in politics, in an awareness and opening in public consciousness about the need for dramatic change. So we don't have to have poverty anymore. We don't have to have war anymore. We don't have to have sickness anymore. That this idea of a new Jerusalem or a heaven on earth isn't some phantasm. That we actually have the ability to create a new world. The poet Alfred Lord Tennyson wrote, "Come, my friends, it's not too late to seek a newer world." We aren't talking about a new world beyond the grave. We're talking about a new world here and now. And we create it with our intellect. We create it with our hands. We create it with our heart. We create it with a knowledge of history. We create it with the work of people like Stephen Zarlenga. We create it with the intention of the American Monetary Institute to provide the information to policymakers so that we can go forward and show how you do it. Here's how you get the money to rebuild the infrastructure. Here's how you get the money to put millions of people to work. Here's how you get the money to provide for housing for people. Here's where the money comes from so you can fund the medical needs of the country. Here's how you can assure people will have retirement security. Here's how you can make sure that every young person who wants to go to college can do so tuition-free. Here's the mechanisms. We don't have to live in poverty anymore. We don't have to live with war anymore. We can create that new world, and that's what this moment is about. 20 great years. Thank you, Stephen Zarlenga. Thank you, Lucien, for your work in supporting this effort. Let's hear it for Stephen Zarlenga and the American Monetary Institute.